water was whenever he was sick.
Well then.
For those who are interested in my dietary habits,
He only drinks like Diet Coke.
no, I drink other stuff too. You just don't see me doing it.
Other stuff. But like,
I have been drinking more water this last 2 weeks because
They're working in the park.
I am in the park and
They don't allow beer.
something like that. And I want water because I know that I need it, and I really shouldn't be drinking that much soda pop. And I'm trying to be an adult.
Put some Milo in it.
Some what?
The
Kool-Aid.
Mio?
Yeah. Put some of the water flavoring in it. Not a lot, just enough to cover up the tastelessness of the
Just do
water.
Kool-Aid and dress something like
Water has taste. I hate to tell you that.
It has
not to her apparently.
It's
all
tasteless.
waters taste different.
Yeah.
Just do Kool-Aid.
I used to be able to tell everybody which water buffalo the water come out of by taste.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, let's see how many people figured that one out.
And they hadn't invented the water buffalo song at that point in life, otherwise I'd have sung that.
Really? You're truly wiping off my spit off my own straw. Wow.
Like, dude,
Wow.
did you at least wipe it on her shirt?
No, she wiped it on her own shirt, but my gosh, I give birth to her, we have some of the same saliva.
Some.
Similar DNA. Well, now that we've discussed my dietary habits and biological stuff, has anybody else got a topic we want to cover?
She's on a diet.
Everybody's on a diet. The
I've
question
actually lost
is
10
it a
pounds, so.
good one?
Thank you.
Really?
I'm trying to eat more vegetables that don't come from a can.
I have.
Yeah.
Trying to save all my cans for the apocalypse. You know, it's just right around the corner.
That's true. Yeah, it's coming
Yeah,
fast.
they kind of are.
November,
Are we gonna be eating during the apocalypse?
going to be eating,
Are we gonna be eating?
eating or eating. I'm probably gonna look each. So where am I at? I need my clicker.
I think we should do a thing that we do not eat any people from our church family.
I don't think we'll have a problem with that.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to stock up on a lot more toilet paper.
Yeah.
And sanitizer.
Yeah, and masks.
Oh, gloves is going out too, so.
Oh yes, gloves.
Don't forget those.
I seriously thought about going and buying a Tyvek suit with the little booties and the gloves and the hood, the mask and the goggles, and wearing it to work.
I could get the Darth Vader outfit.
Ooh, there we go. It's got a respirator built into it.
And climate control.
Because although we're not required to wear a mask, it is highly encouraged by the National Park Service. And you get the stink eye if you don't wear it. I go back and forth. See, I need the paycheck, otherwise, you know.
Our drink.
Where are we at?
Valley Chapel Church.
At least I'm not telling dad jokes this week, right?
No, he did it last week.
Yeah.
We're just waiting.
I can give one good dad joke. If you have 2 shoes and 1 sock, what do you need? Another sock. And you're supposed to slug your neighbor, right? What?
You said slug your neighbor, so she slugged me. She got slug her sister.
See,
She slugged me.
you ask them, well, if you have 2 shoes and 1 sock, what do you need? They say another sock. So you go pop, like that. That's the joke. And except for my children got wise to it and finally said, give the sock away. And no WWF over there, please.
None unless we sell tickets.
Nathan versus Davey wrestling matches.
Oh, that'll be nice.
When I had
In the mud.
we had the basketball party, him and Davey did a lineman thing, and they like ripped the carpet out from a 300-pound TV stand with a
Wow.
TV on it.
Cool. Did they break the TV?
No,
Oh,
it
thank
didn't
God.
fall over.
That's why I didn't get the
They
bill.
ripped
Okay.
the carpet. I said, I don't care about moving 300 pounds. I'm like, rip the carpet out? Ooh.
No, they like pulled it underneath.
Oh.
The carpet was underneath the TV stand. They
like on those magic shows where they yank the
Take the
tablecloth out
from
and
the
don't
dishes.
disturb anything?
No, like it was a heavy thing was on top, and they somehow pulled it out without pulling on it.
Yeah, so exactly what he
It's
just
because
said.
no, because you don't pull it.
They do
Oh,
miracles,
goodness.
they do miracles everywhere else but home. Cool.
Yes, your own kids can't clean your own house. We know how that works. Everyone just gush about my children. Say, oh, they came over. They were so polite. They cleaned everything they touched and made their bed, and they got up. And I'm like,
Not
come on, my
kids.
kid.
Always better at other people's stuff.
You know what I'm talking about. Anyways,
Alright.
Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. We've been on this one for how long now? 3 weeks. That's absolutely correct. And the first 2 weeks we dealt with being pure in heart. And we kind of stumbled over the shall see God there the first week. But last week was Father's Day, and we discussed being pure in heart and being around God. Nevertheless, we are covering what this month? Or actually this year? The Beatitudes. And Matthew 5:8 says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Paul said that we see through a glass what?
Dimly faded?
Dimly, vaguely, darkly, all messed up. In photography, way back in the 50s and 60s, when they wanted to blur a picture, they would put Vaseline on the lens. And it created a bokeh effect around the subject that they were taking a picture of. So if you wanted a bokeh effect around your portrait, they would put some Vaseline around their lens, and I could just cringe thinking about putting Vaseline on my multi-dollar lens. I could focus better than that. And so we have that same problem when we are trying to see God right now, because things are blurry for us. And why is that?
Confusion.
Confusion, what?
Because it wants to other things.
You're trailing off at the very end.
Want to see other things.
Want to see other things? How about we're still in a fallen condition?
I agree with you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My day is complete now.
Service is open.
So we still battle sin.
Every day.
I have temptations, but I might be tempted with things that you're not tempted with. I have a severe problem with stupidity.
So do I.
And I have a very big mouth. I don't know if anybody's ever figured that out yet or not. And I work hard on my self-control. Very hard. Because somebody will say something or do something, and I want to just let them have it. Both barrels right there saying, stupid is.
Stupid does.
Thank you. And I want to say something along those lines. Here's your sign. Stupid is, stupid does. And it hurts, don't it? What? Being stupid. But nevertheless, I can't always say that stuff, can I? No. But nevertheless, I use that fault of mine to illustrate the fact that we still struggle and fight with sin. And the thing about that is we are in the now, meaning that we have been redeemed, but we still struggle with sin, and we live in the
Flush.
not yet.
Oh.
Yes, we're still in these fleshly earth suits, as one friend of mine called them, an earth suit.
Hero suit.
I like
Just like a space suit,
The tent. Yeah.
are persons who we are well within a body. And we sit here, and I can promise you that the moment you're born, you start to degrade. You start to break down. It is the law of thermodynamics. Everything goes from a state of repair to a state of disrepair. Remember that when you're in physics.
I already heard about it.
All right, stand up and quote the two laws of thermodynamics then.
I don't know those.
You said you had
studying
physics.
the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, lucky you. So, as we are in this flesh, as we are in these bodies, and we are living in the here and now, we are presently, each and every one of us, dying. Minute by minute, second by second, you have cells that are going poof, 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 poof. Most of mine are up here inside my cranium, they're going poof, but nevertheless, we all are dying. That is the here. But the not yet says we have what? Eternal life. We struggle with sin, but the not yet says we're redeemed from sin. We live in this dichotomy of being here and in the now, and yet we live also in the not yet because we are seated where? We are seated with Christ. How can that possibly be? Well, when you're God, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And that's one of the things he chose to do. So we live in the now and the not yet, and we struggle and we fight. And when we want to see God, we see him blurry because we're still in these earth suits, these tents, this temporary thing. And we look at him through these lenses with the Vaseline on it, and it blurs everything. And we're like, God, I want to see you for who you are. And what does he say? Someday. Now, whenever dads and moms say maybe or someday, what is the translation, children?
No.
That's the way we take it, but not with God. If God's going to tell us no, God's going to say
No.
no. See, with God, it's either yes, no, or hurry up and wait. Typically, he tells me hurry up and wait and no. So, we want to see God, but when we begin to think about what we're talking about here, we're talking about fellowship with God. Who gets to fellowship with God? No, not quite.
Well, the ones who believe it.
The redeemed get to fellowship with God. Those who have given everything that they have, everything they are, everything they might possess, laid it upon the altar before a living God and says, it is yours. Here's my heart, Lord. Speak what is true. Lead me, guide me. I am not my own. I am bought with a price. The Bible uses the word slave. Now, when we talk about slavery, we always want to go down to antebellum southern United States and think about whipping and beating on people, right? Not so much in the Bible. And I want to say, once again, every people group on the face of the earth has been enslaved at one time or another, okay? So, when we begin to talk about being a slave, a bondservant to God, what are we talking about?
Dying daily.
That's a part of it. See, the Jews had a thing called the Year of Jubilee. Has anybody ever heard of it? I'm going to say if you sat under my teaching for a while, you have. And in the Year of Jubilee, guess what happened to all the slaves? They were set free. Now, if said slave said, you know what? I am a slave to Dave, and Dave treats me well. I like working for Dave. He doesn't abuse me. He makes sure I'm fed. He makes sure my family's taken care of. Dave, I want to be your slave for the rest of my life. They would then take and pierce the ear of the person who said that. And they were known as a, also were known as a love slave. Because they loved the person who took care of them. They loved them so much they wanted to dedicate their life to their service forever and ever. We, when we're talking about being servants and slaves of the Most High God, are talking about that. We are in love with our God, and we want to do whatever he says, whenever he says, so we can serve the kingdom of the living God. We fellowship with God because we are in that position. Who is allowed into the throne room?
The high priest?
The high priest, servants,
Pure in heart.
pure in heart, family. What do we call God?
Father.
Father.
Daddy.
Daddy. Abba, Father. So not only does he keep us on as a love slave, but he brings us into the family. Not as a lesser creation than angels or the trees, but as the apple of his eye.
Thank you, God.
When the prodigal son come home, what did Dad do? Ran to it because he loved him. And God loves us as the apple of his eye. And we come into the throne room of the living God as both slave and as both family and as the child, and we crawl up on his lap and we say, Daddy, so-and-so hurt my feelings. Let's be honest, that's what we say. I know what it's like at my house. We come running in the front door, come running around the corner, halfway down the hall, we're on our knees, come skidding into the side of the bed and say, Dad! Hello? Why is that? Because we all have troubles. Each and every one of us has a problem that we are dealing with, even if it's heard talking about in church.
I was saying, or everybody's just scared of my dad, so we just do their head.
We fellowship with God, and in the now we have salvation. We are no longer slaves to sin. We no longer have that chain of sin wrapped around our neck. And every time the devil decides that he wants us to just get a little further from God, he just yanks that chain. And every time he just feels like it, he yanks that chain. And we, through the salvation and the work of Jesus Christ, are set free from that. If a person sins after being born again, it is a choice. Because the scriptures tell us that with every temptation, it's a way out of it.
And then when you say the devil, will the devil make me do it?
Doesn't make you do jack. You choose to do it. If I lay a $20 bill right here and turn my back and leave it, if you take it, it's what? Because you decided to do it. It's not yours. Why are you messing with it? So as we move along in this life, we see that we have the salvation. We don't have to sin. We can walk away from it. And in this new covenant, we also have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. We now have the law written on our hearts rather than written on a piece of papyrus. So we have to go to somebody else and have them read it to us, because unless you're male, you probably didn't learn to read. And we have to explain it through somebody else. But now God puts his law upon our heart. And if we go to God and say, God, I don't understand, guess what? God does his best to help you understand. So we have the law written upon our heart, and the Holy Spirit is there to also give us an empowerment, to give us ability. Ability to do what?
Preach Jesus.
That's one part.
Not steal.
Not steal, not sin.
Have mercy on others.
Have mercy on others. Serve God. And not sin. If I could sum up all that years and years of people writing about it. So we have the indwelling of the Spirit in our hearts, and we have the salvation. We're no longer slaves to sin, and we have a inheritance. If you're poor like me, rest assured, your kids are going to get something out of your relationship with Jesus if they stay with Him. I have an inheritance with God. What is my inheritance?
Eternal life.
Eternal life and an eternity with my God in the New Jerusalem. How many remember talking about that 4 weeks ago? Okay. Everybody else is like, we did? Okay. So we know that we have the salvation and dwelling of the Spirit and inheritance in the new covenant and in the now, but what about the not yet? The things that have yet to come. Well, let's kind of look at what's going to go on. No more temptation. I'm not going to have the desire to pop people in the nose anymore. I'm not going to have the desire to be mean to individuals. What are you laughing for? You don't think I'm mean?
I know I am.
I'm probably the cruelest person you people have ever met in all your life. But you know what?
You've been redeemed.
I'm redeemed. That's exactly right. And if I don't want to be cruel to people, I don't have to be cruel to people. And as we draw closer to God, that desire to be sinful and that desire to be cruel to people starts to wane. Why? Because we believe in sanctification, whereas we progress through this life, we become more and more like our Lord. So our desire to sin starts to go out the door. Isn't that nice? So we'll no longer be tempted in a new life. And for those of you who are like me and those cells are popping quicker than you want, you get a new body. You don't have to worry about COVID. You don't have to worry about cancer. You don't have to worry about your hair falling out. Hello. You don't have to worry about it turning gray. You don't have to worry about your teeth falling out anymore. You don't have to worry about having to wear glasses. You don't have to worry about that scar where you lost your body parts back there, because the body parts are all back. And you don't hurt every morning when you wake up. You don't hurt as you go to work. You don't hurt when you go to bed. Yoo-hoo! It'll be nice.
Yeah.
There will be no more death. Death is a consequence of the fall. Your body degrading is a consequence of the fall. But we have been redeemed. We are in the now and the not yet. Death is still to be put underneath our feet. But through Jesus, it is now and it is not yet. Because it's promised to us. Does anybody here like Petra?
I love Petra.
Only person.
No, I'm
2 of us, 3 of us.
old group. None of these young kids. know.
I told my children repeatedly, so I brainwashed them as best I could. When I die, unless I'm taking them in the rapture, what?
Liar. Petra, did they play that your funeral?
Which Petra song?
I don't know. Who's Petra?
She's a rock and roll band.
Grave Robber is the name of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is the sting? Where's the victory? I'm not staying here. There's coming a day when my body and spirit are going to be reunited. There's going to be a shout coming from that dirt. And it's going to be me coming up out of that ground. And I'm going to be reunited with my spirit and my body and Jesus in the air. And I'm not staying up there either, because we're coming back and we're going to go to where? Armageddon maybe? Huh? Don't you love the now and the not yet? So no longer tempted, a new body in a continued eternity with God. What are we going to do for all of eternity? And as I begin to think about it, it makes my head hurt, so I quit. Because that's a long time. And I can't feature doing anything for very long without getting bored with it. A condition being fallen, right? So if you can't comprehend something like that, that's okay. You are finite, just as I am finite, and the finite cannot truly comprehend the infinite. So it's okay to say, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's totally okay, because do we understand everything there is to know about God? No, because we see through the lens.
With the Vaseline.
Yes. We don't see clearly, but someday we will. And I don't want to miss it. I want to be there. And so as we begin to understand our fellowship with God, we understand that we are privileged. No matter what gender you are, no matter what race you are, no matter what anything you are privileged as somebody who is born again, because you are privileged to see the King as he truly is, without all the filters, without all the problems, without all of life going on around you. We get to get a glimpse here on earth, and then we get to see God completely later on after the rapture. Sound good to me? Mm-hmm. Not only are we privileged to see the King, but we're privileged to be able to associate with the King. Because we're his what? Children. We are the children of the Creator of all that is. Don't sell yourself short. When that little voice comes into your head and says you're worthless, when that little voice comes in your head and says you're never going to amount to anything, when that little voice comes in your head and says you are the worst person who ever walked the face of the earth, you can say, no, I'm not. I am born again. God is my Father, and I know who I am in Christ. So take a walk.
Take a hike.
I don't know if Alicia can hear me or not. We'll find out. I grew up in Hot Spring County, Arkansas. A little place called Malvern. And I was always told by my peers at school that I was ugly, that I was worthless, so forth and so with. Adults told me I was never going to amount to anything. So being a young person, what exactly did that do to my psyche?
Not good.
It wasn't good.
Brought you down.
Incredibly far. So, those of you who know Assemblies of God history know that a man named Ian Bell pastored a church in Malvern, Arkansas, published the Word and the Witness right there, called for a general council of Pentecostal churches to come together in Hot Springs, Arkansas in 1914. And thus was born the Assemblies of God. Ian Bell became the first general superintendent of the Assemblies of God, and that's whose church I attended. My pastor's name was Larry Moore. And I started listening to what Pastor Larry had to say. And so one day I believed I heard God telling me to go into the ministry. So I went and talked to Pastor Larry. And he said, well, here's what we'll do. Do you plan on going to college? I was like, well, yeah, I don't know. You know, the teenage answer. But nevertheless, he said, go to Bible college. You can always change your major. And if you get a 4-year degree in a ministry subject, that's okay. People still look at it as a 4-year degree, it's still accredited, blah, blah, blah. So I go to Southwestern Assemblies of God University, found out I loved Bible college. But something happened to me between Bible college and there. I met this guy wearing camouflage and a round hat. He wanted me to call him drill sergeant.
Mhm.
And he put some backbone in me. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
All the soldiers out there. And I graduated from Bible college. I was slightly higher than halfway in my class, which case I graduated high school dead center. I mean, dead center of my class. Was I the smartest?
No.
Was I the best looking?
No.
Was I anybody with potential?
Yes.
Yes.
So we go to Bible college, and there's this girl working at Winn-Dixie. She smiled at me. I turned 10 shades of red, ducked my head, and ran, right? Why? Because I've always been told that.
You weren't good enough.
Mm-hmm. So later on, I see said girl carrying boxes up the stairwell at the dorm I was living in. And so I was like, hey, I know that girl from the grocery store. And so my friends started elbowing, carry the boxes up for her, carry the boxes up for her. So by that time, she's on her last box. And so we're basically having an argument. Let me carry your box. No, I got it. Let me carry your box. They're all, they're all over there giving me a hard time because I'm not carrying their boxes. So she let me carry her box up the stairs. Anyway, long story short, we wound up married. I wound up with a 1.9 GPA. Exactly.
Well, hey, it's better than nothing, right?
It practically was nothing. So we're married. I have a 1.9 GPA. So guess what I do?
Join the military.
I dropped out of school. I'd already been in the military. And I let her complete her 4-year degree because statistics said that usually when girls get married at Bible college, they never return. So I was going to make sure that didn't happen to her. Can we say love? So she graduates, I get to go back, and my semester GPA started looking more like 3.5 to 4.0. See what happens when you grow up?
Absolutely true.
And so I graduate, and one of my professors, I got my 4-year degree on the 10-year program. Doc Harden, if you're watching this, Dr. Harden, said, yells out across the stage, it's about time. You tell who loves you by who picks on you, right? And does my story end there? No. I become a missionary to Alaska. Way up north, Arctic Circle. I realized that I need to do better, so I do what?
Go back to school.
Go back to school. We have children. We're stuck in the lower 48 because we have children with medical issues, and I'm going to school. And lo and behold, comes the dark period in my life, and I'm going to go into all that. Long story short, God finally calls me a hypocrite to my face, and I go, oh. And I go back to school, finally. And I get my MA. For those of you who are interested, I have a Master's of Arts in Theological Studies, specialized in Pentecostal and Charismatic Studies. So I am working nights and going to school full time, driving 4 hours to go to class. One way. What's my GPA look like?
1.9.
That's kind of close. 2.5.
Okay, so you're C.
C
You're
plus.
average.
But guess what you need to get into a PhD program? 3.0. So I graduate with my master's degree in Pentecostal theology, and I got not quite good enough to get into a PhD program. And the people who, when I was in the 4-year program that I knew, were looking at me saying, oh, if you're going to do anything, you need a master's degree. So the same people while I'm in my master's degree saying, oh, if you're going to do anything, you got to have a
PhD.
you got to have a doctorate. And something inside of me finally clicked after a while that, why am I doing this? Is it because I was always told I'm never going to amount to anything and I'm trying to prove everybody wrong? Am I trying to prove something to myself? Am I doing it because I enjoy the education? Why am I here? Because this is a really expensive way to prove to myself that I'm somebody, right?
Right.
Well, it turns out that after that epiphany, I decided that I wanted to be educated because I will not give to my God something that cost me nothing. We are children of God. And we still play childish games with God. God, you can have this part of me and you can have this part of me, but you can't touch that part of me. And the entire time God's saying, I want everything. To hold anything back is called hypocrisy and rebellion. And God equates rebellion with
Sin.
witchcraft. So here I sit before you, and a lot of people would tell you that I am an accomplished individual. I do what I love. I have advanced degrees in what I love. I have a smoking hot wife. I have 2 beautiful children that are incredibly intelligent, doing very good in their fields of work. But when I look at myself, all I see is the struggle. I gotta stop listening to the voices in my head and listen to what God has to say. Where am I at now as far as education is concerned? It's a joke because I'm in a PhD program, 40% off, woohoo, with a 4.0. It's almost as if this program is tailor-made for me. There's no tests. I just write papers. Woohoo. But why am I there? Because I will not give to God something that cost me nothing. And as we seek to see God, I had to point this way, not up there. Are we offering him something that costs us absolutely nothing? My wife, has a relative who begins her Christmas shopping in February. She goes into her garage and digs out these boxes of stuff that she's bought over the years that cost her probably $10 for the entire box. Reaches in and gets that 30-cent item, packages it, and mails it to us as our Christmas gifts. What has she just done?
Where's mine?
Get rid of her junk?
She's getting rid of her junk. 1, she's given us something that she's put no thought into. When you buy a gift for somebody, you buy something that you're going to what?
Think they'll like.
Think they'll like, something that you put effort into. What you think about. So she's giving us something that cost her nothing. 30 cents. It costs more to mail it than what the items were.
Expensive to mail present.
Can you see how that's insulting?
Mhm.
Yet We as human beings do it to God on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah. Amen.
We want to see God, but we bring him something that we put no effort into, that cost us no effort, no treasure, no blood, sweat, and tears. Say, here, God, it's the best I got. How long do you think it's going to take us to get a clear picture of God doing that?
Long time.
Very long time. I do not own my house. My truck is paid for, thank God. I own one vehicle. I own very little furniture. My kids are going to hate me when I die because they got to move all those books. That's right. You're all yours. They'll learn, my kids. I'm talking to the camera because my daughter's watching. I know she is. Where has my blood, sweat, treasure, and everything gone? I promise you that I keep getting job offers to go to Afghanistan. First job offer was $500,000 a year. Second job offer was $250,000. Now they're offering $200,000 a year. You get a month's vacation right smack dab in the middle. They'll fly you anywhere in the world you want to go except the United States, tax purposes. What keeps me here? Has anybody ever heard of Stephen Curtis Chapman?
Yes.
He sings a song, "We will abandon it all
Mm-hmm. I like that song.
for the sake of the call." We want to see God. We have to abandon it all for the sake of that call for salvation. I have nothing. If I die, it's going to cost more to bury me than to sell my stuff. To me, that's funny, but nevertheless, I won't be there long because I live in the now and the not yet. And God is faithful. As long as I am faithful to him, let's pray.